All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you could be here at our webinar, Start Smart and Finish Strong. This is really for our Flex program students, whether you are joining us and you are just starting the program, you're thinking about the program, you're midway through or almost done. A lot of what I'm going to talk about here today is going to be helpful. Hopefully it's designed to be helpful at any point in time. So I don't want anybody to feel like it's not for you if you're farther along than maybe that first phase or something along there. What we're going to do today is really talk just a little bit about the overview of the cycle of the program, that value of accountability, identify some resources that are available to you, offer some suggested strategies. I have a little bit of an activity that we may do here within the webinar. If not, it's definitely something that you can take away as an activity, and then leave time for questions and answers as well. And so what I really wanted to start with was not waiting to get started, right? So taking action every day creates momentum and produces results faster than waiting for the right time. I don't know if you've ever done anything like this before. If you've started an exercise program, or obviously you're starting Flatiron School, but if we're thinking about something that's similar to that, I always think, right, it's January, people tend to be like, I'm going to eat healthier, or I'm going to save more money, or I'm going to, get fit and healthy. Maybe that's just what my January looks like. But there's no time like the present, is really what all of this comes down to. There's no right time to start. And the longer that we wait to start or to re-engage, specifically with Flatiron School, the more it really starts to feel like it is sort of that monster in the closet. We don't want to open that door because we don't know what it's going to look like. So it tends to get bigger than maybe it's necessary. So we're going to talk a little bit about right-sizing that today and starting to take action. Wanted to share this image with you. Obviously you can read it, but it says the emotional journey of creating anything great. And in case you were in doubt, what you are doing here at Flatiron School, adding to what your professional portfolio is, creating a specific career change, a career pivot, coming back to education after a while, jumping into education for the first time, whatever that might be, or anything that I didn't call out, you are doing something great. And so this is really, I love this image because it gives some words to what you may be going through, right? You start really with that. This is the best idea ever. I'm so excited, right? You're really there. And then that roller coaster, you're going up and up and up. And then all of a sudden it starts to go down. With any roller coaster, it's going to have those ups and downs. And then it's going to level out at the end, right? So you don't stay at the bottom. That would be a pretty terrible roller coaster if that happened. But I want you to look at that, right? There's the dark swamp of despair. I don't know if anybody on here is old as enough to remember the never-ending story, right? Like the swamp of nothingness or something along those lines. That's what this really reminds me of. And this is in that moment where either you haven't gotten started and you're afraid of that, or you have disengaged for a little bit and aren't sure what's on the other side of that engagement. And so we just don't make eye contact, right? We just leave that monster in the closet and it grows and grows and grows. But then you start to open it. Maybe you open up that door and you peek out and you're like, oh, maybe it's not as big as I thought it was, right? And then it's one of those cartoons, right, where it's just like a little kitten, is coming out and meowing at you. But what I'm really trying to get to here is that it is a journey. And at whatever point you are on the journey right now, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. To get to the next point where you're supposed to be, you need to keep moving. You need to take that action and set that plan. And that's what we're really going to talk about here today. And so I am a student advisor. You know what? I didn't do that. I didn't do a great job of introducing myself because I got so excited and I got really just excited to jump in. My name is Megan Pendley-Pickett, and I am a student advisor. I work on the student advising team. And one of the main things that myself and my teammates do is provide accountability for the students that we work with, whether you're flex students, live or campus students, across any of the disciplines, anything like that, really that idea of accountability. And the value of accountability, specifically in the framework of Flatiron School, is obviously for program completion, and then it's also job readiness. And what I mean by obviously program completion is getting to the end of that. And so being able to set goals, be accountable for them. So maybe that is setting regular intervals of Discord messages or email check-ins. It's setting regular cadence of meetings, virtual meetings, Zoom meetings, calls, text messages, whatever is going to work for you, work that out with your advisor. But it gives you something to say, okay, in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, X amount of time, I'm going to complete this number of modules. This is how I'm going to get it done. And then I'm going to check in with you, advisor, on this specific set date. And what you do in that moment, and I've had a lot of people say this to me, is like, oh, I knew I needed to get going because I had to have something to report to you. The reality is we're not here to say you're passing our advising class or you have to do it one right way. But it does, when you know that there's a backstop of having that conversation or that scheduled check-in with your advisor, with your instructor, with another person in the program, it spurs us to action. Whereas 2 weeks doesn't sound, it sounds like it's a really long time. It goes by really quickly, right? And so when it comes to job readiness, this helps you to start shifting your tech skills, shifting any skills that you are bringing to the table into that tech world, to start talking about deadlines and getting work done in there, learning new things within a specific amount of time. So it's really getting you for that job readiness, getting ready for that, getting ready for the interview process, and taking on your first job or your next job in the tech space. And I wanted to walk through, I need to minimize a little bit what's on my screen. Of course, my mouse is jumpy. Here we go. I wanted to provide some resources for those of you who maybe this is a refresher or you are newer to the program. This is something you're definitely talking about with your advisors. But I wanted to point out some of the major buckets of resources. Obviously, you have your instructors who are your technical experts, and they lead your learning resources. You can meet with them one-on-one. Typically, those one-on-one links are going to be found within Discord, which I'll get to in a second. You can respond. They will respond to direct messages, again, primarily in Discord. If you don't have Discord set up yet, or you're not really sure, you haven't gone through it too much, don't worry about it. I'm not going to do a Discord tutorial here today. I would encourage you to reach out to either myself or to your direct student advisor, and they'll be able to walk you through Discord. But your instructors are going to be your technical experts that are available to you and lead your program. Student advisors, I've talked about that, but we are here to guide you, motivate you, act as a coach, provide accountability, which I just talked about. Ask Ada is our 24/7 chat bot. It was internally developed specifically for our Flatiron School students. You access it through Canvas, which is where your coursework is. And what's really cool about Ada is that it knows where you're at in the curriculum. So as you're writing your questions, and I'm going to talk here in a little bit as a strategy of how to prompt a chat bot, Ada being one of them, but it knows where you're at. So it knows if you're in phase 1, which module you're in, or wherever that's applicable for you. And so that helps also to provide some tailored information. So again, 24/7, that doesn't take any holidays, anything like that. Pair with the technical coach is the human side, the people side of our help resources. So if once going through Ada, you want a little bit more or have something that's not being met by the chat bot, then you can choose to do the pair with the technical coach. This is available for data science, software engineering, and cybersecurity. It's not available for product design. Your instructor, Cameron Renneker on product design, he's not going to be available 24/7, but he is great at getting back to you as well. And then there is Discord. So Discord is a communication platform. Many of you, we find out through talking with our students, many of you have used this for gaming purposes previously. So this is really a communication tool where you can send individualized messages out. It's also where you're at for your specific phase, for your discipline, you're going to get information from there. And so oftentimes there's going to be resource channels specific to your phase. It's going to have the links to be able to schedule a one-on-one with your instructor. It's going to have links to the calendar for any review sessions that are happening. It'll have links to the recordings for those review sessions. You're able to engage with your peers, with people who are in that similar phase, as well as with instructors who are monitoring that channel at the time. So this is really, really valuable. If you don't have Discord set up yet, or you don't check it or use it very often, I would encourage you to set it up and at least engage with it once a day, just to see if any new information has come up, anything along those lines. So start to build that habit around some of these resources. Whoops. So we're going to talk about some strategies. And so the first one that I wanted to share is harness the power of AI. So think AI being ChatGPT, Ask Ada, again, our internal one. Definitely I'm going to read some of this, so I know that you can also read it, and you'll get these slides and you'll get this recording. You'll have access to it later on, but do not have any chatbot write code for you. The reason that we say don't have this happen is for a couple of reasons. One, it hits that plagiarism mark if you are utilizing it for any projects or work for your coursework. Simply having it write that code for you and copying and pasting it in full, that does hit that plagiarism threshold. So we want to stay away from that. Also, you are learning still about code. You're still learning how to write some of these pieces. And so you may not know if that code is incorrect. And so what we suggest you harnessing AI for is when you don't understand something, or you want to make sure that what you're understanding is correct, if that makes sense, give you a little bit more information. So up here on your screen are some bullet points on how to write a prompt. So if you're writing a prompt, to get more information from a chatbot, you want to include your expertise level, what you want to achieve, a cap on the number of words or characters, and ask for an example in the workplace, for it to provide an example that can be utilized in the workplace. So you can see on here, you would write something to the effect of, I am a new student in a software engineering boot camp and unclear about working with objects in JavaScript. Tell me what this is and provide an example in 200 words or less. Obviously, you're not going to use this exactly, but this does give you a template, and you're going to have to play around with it. But what I can tell you as a former career coach, that idea of learning how to prompt AI, that is a real skill that employers are looking for. Not only is it going to help you throughout your coursework here, it's going to help you get unstuck in those moments, keep moving forward. And you're also building a really important muscle, a really important skill that employers are seeking. I just thought of something. Hopefully it will come back to me. Oh, what I did want to say is if you are feeling stuck in either a concept or a code or something along those lines, utilizing your resources that are available to you at that moment in time, at about the 20-minute, 30-minute feeling stuck mark, that's our go-to, our rule of thumb to reach out and ask for help. If it's during business hours, Discord is a great place to go for that. If it's after business hours, look at what the Pair with a Technical Coach hours are available for you, and definitely that Ask Ada. So you don't want to stay stuck for 2, 3, 4 hours. That sort of takes this very malleable muscle called your brain, and makes it pretty rigid. So it's harder for that information to go in, to be absorbed. And so you definitely want to start harnessing that power of AI and asking for help early on in that stuck process. The next strategy that I want to talk about is creating a schedule. This often feels like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Of course, I have to create a schedule. If you're in our Flex program, you are more likely than not balancing work, either full-time, part-time, three-quarter time, sometime. You might be balancing your family, being a caretaker for loved ones. You might also be going to school for something else. Who knows? There's lots of things that come up. And so creating a schedule that works for you and that can be flexible is really, really important. That's definitely something that your student advisor can do with you. We're not going to give it to you because we don't know what the ins and outs are for you. We may ask questions like, what's your ideal time to start during the day? When are you able to sit down and do some of this work after work or on the weekends, whatever that might be. And then start to get really realistic about that. To go from being almost a exerciser, I'm really trying on that, but to wake up and say, okay, starting on Monday, I'm going to work out for an hour a day, 7 days a week. That sounds amazing. And at 11 o'clock at night on, this week, when I'm making that plan for next week, I have full faith that I am going to get that done. Monday morning, an hour before I normally get up, I have a little less faith in that plan, right? And so as you start thinking about what's going to be realistic and how do you stretch those boundaries of it being realistic a little bit. So thinking about, do you get up a half an hour earlier? Do you work a little longer on the weekends and a little less during the week? I don't know. These are just some of the conversations I've had with students. But you also you definitely want it to be realistic, but you want it to be flexible in that you are thinking, okay, if I am unable to because something happens, right? One of my kids was sick last week, so I'm not putting it in the universe. It's already happened, but he came home sick. I had to juggle some work things around to be able to make that happen. So that's that flexibility piece. So it doesn't always go as planned, but you have to have a plan to deviate from so you can come back to it. Taking consistent action every day, much like how we were seeing that avalanche build, that is going to make a huge difference. And this can be overwhelming. So start with looking at a week at a time. To start making a plan for March, April, May, oh my goodness, that stresses me out on your behalf. And so really start thinking about, okay, what does the next week bring? Where can I fit this in? What are my resources going back to that? And definitely have these conversations, either through a call or Discord, email, whatever might work for you, text message with your student advisor, just so it comes out of your head onto paper, onto your computer, those types of things. A few more strategies. If you are somebody who, like myself, reading technical information or nonfiction information is difficult for me to take that in. If you fall into that category, you can get a screen reader. There's a couple that are listed on here called Speechify. One is called Natural Reader. I am sure there are others that are out there. This was one of our curriculum developers' suggestions on these two. And so it helps with audio learning. It also helps with if you're doing something else while you're doing this. I am not suggesting that you multitask, but we're prioritizing a lot, right? And so oftentimes being able to read it and hear it are different ways for that to come into your brain. Chunking out steps. And so this is really important to think about, right? If you're looking at, I need to complete this module, that's a great goal to have. How do you break it down even further from there? Knowing that your brain can handle, scientifically, our brains can handle 3 to 7 chunks of steps at a time, or steps that are sort of chunked into a block at a time. And so it also, helps to create a very detailed to-do list. So if you're looking at a milestone or a project and you start to break that down into its pieces, you can see which pieces go together. It allows you to look at the amount of time that you have. What do you think you can get done within that amount of time? Excuse me. And so it's a really, really helpful way to start making progress, especially if you are just getting started or if you are re-engaging. This is a really great step. And you have to adapt any of these strategies to work for you. What has worked for you in the past, what you would like to try differently, those types of things. And when possible, repetition is another really great way for these concepts to solidify in your brain. Focus on repetition of labs and concepts. It's a great strategy. You know what also is great is that I spelled the word great wrong on here. I need some of those squiggles under my slide decks, and I didn't get one, but I love to learn that in public. But it is a great strategy in preparation for your end of phase assessment, and for post-graduation. And so as you are preparing for your end of phase assessment, going back to those labs that maybe you had a challenge with, reviewing some of those review sessions, watching those recordings, those types of things. Again, as you are preparing for your end of phase assessment, that's a great place for that to go in. And the last couple of suggestions that I would have, or strategy suggestions, is thinking about when you have your time blocked, when you have built that schedule and you're looking for this next week, you have looked and created a to-do list in a way that makes sense for you. You're utilizing your chunked steps. You're looking at time versus task and task versus time. And the way that I like to think about this is, let's say that you have planned 2 hours to work Monday through Friday, 2 hours on coursework Monday through Friday. What are you going to want to accomplish within that amount of time? What I can tell you from my personal experience and anecdotally in working with students, by saying, I'm going to get as much done as possible in this time, that's not a great strategy. That's not overly effective as a standalone strategy. What creates some effectiveness in that strategy of I'm going to get as much done as I can is, okay, what do you want to get accomplished, right? So you're looking at those steps, those chunks of steps. I wish there was a better way to say chunks of steps over and over, but there is not. Groupings of steps, whatever that might be, you're looking at your to-do list. And you want to focus on those items to accomplish in that block of time versus spending only time on the coursework. What students often, when again, I'm going to get as much done in this block of time as possible, when that's the standalone strategy, at the end of that block of time, students often report, they're like, I don't really know what I got done. I felt like I was just sort of moving my mouse around and just waiting for that time to elapse, versus, okay, I said I was going to read this article, I was going to do half of this lab, whatever is in that detailed list that you have. One, you can look back, it creates momentum. You can look back and you can check things off your list. It also helps you to develop a detailed to-do list for you to go into your next block of time, which may be later in that particular day, or it's the next day. But you start to create that, you finding that strategy and that rhythm that's going to work for you. And again, looking at it 1 week at a time. And then lastly, it's using those milestones. This is going to look different for everyone depending upon your discipline. So definitely get some clarification from your instructors, work with your student advisors just to make sure especially if you're at the beginning of it. But this is a really great way to use for pacing. Most of those are going to have deadlines in there. You stick to the due dates as much as possible, which will allow yourself flexibility. Getting started at the beginning, or whatever your beginning is, right? If you are in phase 1 and you want to get done with phase 1, you got to get moving on phase 1. Applies to any phase that you are in. And so get started, stick to those due dates as much as possible. Eventually, if you are behind, you should be able to catch up to sort of where it's at. And that's where more flexibility starts to come in. Sometimes you have to compact that time together, and often then and the more that you can front load that, the easier it's going to be, the simpler it's going to be when you take a vacation, when there is time off, when maybe you get sick or something unexpected comes up. It gives you some of that flexibility. And again, definitely utilize your instructor to understand what each milestone means and the amount of time that it can take, so you can think about that. What time are we at? Half past. What I would like for everybody to do is, and we're just going to do this for just 1 or 2 minutes. It's not enough time. Let me be real clear. It is not enough time for you to get through all of these questions. But having these at your disposal and starting to think about that, even taking this in to your next meeting or your first meeting, whatever that looks like, with your student advisor, if you wanted to send them a message that's got some of this information in there, what this really does is help you to start reflecting on who you are as a learner. And when you're thinking about, there's a little bit in here of what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't worked for you in the past. Even when we identify some of those things that haven't worked for us in the past, we still tend to do them. I am guilty of that myself. We still tend to say, well, this is how I've always done it, and I'm going to do it the same, even if it's not the most effective. And so this is an area where you can start thinking of, preferred mode. I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, and then I'm going to be quiet for 2 minutes, which is, for anybody who has worked with me before, that my being quiet for any length of time is physically painful. But why is it important to think about your preferred mode of communication? This helps you identify which resources are going to be a priority for you. If it's in-person conversations, is it messaging? Is it whatever it might be? Doesn't mean you're always going to get that preferred mode of communication, or if it's not available, then you're unable to learn. But it does give some insight into maybe this is why I'm feeling frustrated. What can I do? How do I make time tomorrow during, the hours that someone's available to be able to have that conversation, that type of thing? How do you plan tasks? If you have a method that is not in a strategy that I shared today that works for you, fantastic. If it works for you, keep doing it. How do you build on that? What works for you on a Monday may not work for you on the next day, on that Tuesday. See how I said next day because my brain couldn't come up with Tuesday. But what may work for you on one day may not work for you on another day, depending upon your energy, depending on your schedule, depending on what's going on sort of in the world around you. Again, how do you execute tasks? What's worked for you in the past? What has not worked that maybe you want to stay away from, or that you want to tweak and sort of open up why that hasn't worked, and figuring that out, and what are some new strategies that you could try. So I'm going to give everybody, just again, like I said, 2 minutes just to start taking some notes. And I would love if, as you're thinking through this, if you want to drop into the chat just an answer to one of these, one of these bullet points that are in there, or an aha moment that you had, if you're comfortable with that. And then we'll come back together as a group. So happy reflecting. Okay, that may not have actually been the full 2 minutes, but I want to make sure we get through these slides. So definitely want you to keep thinking about this as time is going on. Oops. I want you to remember that you are doing something new, and doing your best looks different every day. I mean, I could go on and on about this. I hope that this is self-explanatory, right? Grace and flexibility in starting something new is key to this. In addition to taking action every day, it doesn't have to be the same action. It doesn't need to be the same action. It doesn't need to be the same block of time for that action. And sometimes taking that action and being intentional about your time is, I'm going to intentionally take a break. I'm going to intentionally not do anything on this day or tomorrow or whatever it might be. And taking that rest, like this person who's just laying back, right? They could be doing yoga, they could be exercising, they could just be thinking. Who knows what they're doing, right? And so doing your best looks different every day. And so giving yourself that grace and that flexibility, building in some of that intentional time to walk away, to not think about it, to not have those thoughts in your head of like, oh, I should be, I should not be, those types of things. I often joke with people is that when we are saying things like, I should be doing this, I should know more, I should be at the same level that someone else is, right? We're shoulding on ourselves, and it creates a should storm, right? And so whatever we can do to recognize what we are bringing to the table, taking that rest, speeding up when necessary, speeding up when possible, or fitting more in, and then taking that break. I was actually at a conference yesterday, and the closing speaker was talking about how after, I'm going to butcher this, I think, but after 3 days of concerts, back-to-back concerts, Taylor Swift says she doesn't get out of bed at all for a full day. And the speaker's point was, if even Taylor Swift needs to take a nap, then we all definitely need to take a nap, or need to take that intentional time. So just definitely give yourself grace and flexibility as you are embarking on something new specifically. We're coming to the end here. Okay, so here's just some contact information, some things that we talked about here today. I actually pulled this slide from our orientation slides because I think that this makes a big difference to have these at your fingertips. And then remember, obviously, you can reach out directly to your instructor or a technical coach if applicable. And then I think we are at the question and answer portion of this. So yeah, so I'm gonna stop sharing and see if anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to share from their brainstorm, that mini brainstorm that we had, or if there is, any questions or concerns that you have about anything that we went over. What do we have over here? Louise, one of our advisors, is saying she typically plans tasks by breaking it down into chunks. She's a process person, so I like to figure out how to attack a task and duplicate it for other similar tasks. I think that's such a great point, Louise. Thank you. Is that, again, as you're starting something new, you're always going to be learning something new in this program, but the process of that learning may not be new. And so that fatigue starts to lessen as you move throughout the program. So I love Louise's idea of being able to duplicate that sort of task chunking and task completion, be able to apply that to other things. Someone else is saying that they break down problems into smaller segments and take baby steps. Love it. As one segment is resolved, and take action towards the remaining parts. Rinse and repeat. It's very similar, right? And so again, it also creates that momentum. I was sharing with someone the other day, I'm the kind of person who will make my to-do list, and I'm a pen and paper person with lots of Post-it notes. I will actually, if I did something that wasn't originally on that list, I'll go back and put it on there so I can check it off, so I can have a more accurate view of what did I accomplish. I sat here for 2 hours. Did I read this? What did I get done? Right. So when you have sort of those complementary pieces, you're able to create that momentum. And then again, you can apply it when you get to something that is similar. And one thing, again, from that job seeker standpoint, from an employer standpoint, one of the things that you are really learning in this program, in addition to all of the technologies and frameworks and tech speak and all of that, is you are learning or relearning how to learn. And that is invaluable. One, to be able to talk about in the interview process, but two, for you to know you know how to learn, that you are going to apply for a job that may or may not be from a language or a framework that you learned here at Flatiron School, but you are more than equipped, to take that on because you have reacquainted yourself with how to learn. And that's what you are sharing here. Oh, I'm getting the hiccups, which is a very opportune time for that. And so Karina is saying that this strategy for her is especially helpful when she's feeling overwhelmed and very far from the end goal. Absolutely. Day one looks very different than day 50 and, month 6 and week 40 or whatever that might be. And so as you're looking down that really far line, it can be overwhelming, and recognizing that it's overwhelming is a step, as opposed to telling yourself, I should, right? Not be overwhelmed. I should feel a certain way, or I should be whatever it might be. I love that the idea of breaking down these tasks is a way to right size that overwhelmedness. Maybe you just become whelmed. I don't know. I don't think that's a word, but maybe you just become whelmed, right? So you're really sort of right sizing that anxiety as well. So thanks everybody for sharing that. Additional questions, concerns, anything that anybody wants to share for the good of the order that you think might be helpful for other people? So somebody is asking, they fell behind due to some life experiences that have come up. What is your advice to finish as quick as possible? So without knowing the specifics, nor do I want to ask you that in a public space like this, but I would definitely, I would outreach to your instructor to find out sort of where you're at, what are their suggestions on how to use those milestones of what you have left to complete, and what their impression is, what their perspective is on the amount of time for those milestones. I would also simultaneously set up a meeting with your student advisor about, here's what my instructor is saying, get your student advisor's point of view on it as well, and build those schedules. And so I think that one of the best strategies, or a strategy that I often will share with people, whether I think it's the best or one of them, right, is you have to start. Waiting to start to get back into it is only going to, again, create sort of that monster in the closet scenario. And so start building out, okay, what do I need to do? Who do I need to contact? How do I do that? What do I have left? What's your program end date? If you're not clear about that, you can absolutely reach out to your you can reach out to your instructor, but your student advisor will be able to give you that information pretty quickly as well. And then you'll know how many weeks you are working with. So gathering information and start to create a plan as quickly as possible. I think that is helpful and then stick to that plan. Again, without knowing all of the specifics. Are on-campus facilities like the library, for instance, available to full-time online students who live in New York City? I am going to give you my perspective while Michelle Pathay, our Director of Community, is going to be able to add to some of that as well. She's going to do that better than I am. Go ahead. Thanks, Michelle.
I'm happy to take this one. No worries, Megan. All right, so Karina's got this question about visiting campus. And the answer is yes. If you are in the Flex program, or you are learning any of our disciplines online, but you are located in either New York City or Denver, where our 2 campuses are, you are welcome to reserve a desk and come to campus to work. I do want to acknowledge that we do have instructors on campus, but those instructors are generally spending time with their cohort of campus-based students. And I just say that because I think sometimes people who are learning online come to campus expecting to be able to have a one-on-one with an instructor. And just due to bandwidth and how many students an instructor has at any given time, sometimes those instructors just don't have additional time. But that being said, I think it is really helpful for a lot of online students if they need a place to work, or they just want to check out the campus space, to reserve a desk, get a feel for the community. We have a lot of events that happen on campus. We have women in tech lunches once a month. We have guest speakers and happy hours. And those events and those opportunities are definitely something that we want our Flex community to be part of as well. So if I'm gonna drop an email address into the chat, and if you are in New York or Denver and do want to come check out campus, maybe you're working on your prep work or you're started your program already, send me an email to that email address and I can give you the information to visit campus.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. That was lots more information than you all would have gotten from me. And so that's super helpful. What other questions or concerns does anybody have either about, what we were talking about here today? Okay, great. So she put that in there. It's community@flatironschool.com. So that is fantastic. And so anything else from folks that would be helpful, or any clarification on any of the slides or things that I went over during the presentation?
I have some questions, Megan. Do you mind me
I don't mind at all. That'd be great.
jumping in? Do you, in all your conversations with students, and let's even say particularly those first one or two one-on-ones that you have, are there any maybe common characteristics of certain students that you notice maybe tend to move through the program? I don't want to say more quickly, but who are able to kind of find success and fewer obstacles, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that students couple of things. I think that students who get started quickly, as the program starts, as close to their cohort start date as possible. I think that makes a big difference because it starts momentum. And identifying resources, specifically those in Discord, which then lead you to all of the instructional resources and additional pieces. I think that is helpful. And then really just making that plan. That plans can change. Plans are meant to change. It's not, I tell people, I'm like, you don't have to make these plans in pen. You can write in pencil, right? You can figure out what's going to work for you. But I think that taking those steps as early on to your start date as possible, one is going to maximize your time. And so it's going to minimize the thought that goes through a lot of folks' head of like, am I going to have enough time? This took more time than I thought it would. Whatever that might be around time, the sooner the better is for that. And then communicate early and often with your advisor as well as as instructors. So it's pulling in that sort of taking that initial action, and then identifying resources and communicating with them early on. I think really makes a difference. Oftentimes when we're meeting with students that have been in the program, even for a month or two, everybody has their own journey. There's no one right way. But I think that what happens when we're meeting with students 1 month, 2 months, 3 months in from their start date and haven't had a lot of progress, one, it gets really big in their brain about what they haven't done. And often they don't know what their resources are. And so they've been spending a lot of time feeling really frustrated about a concept that they couldn't understand, or who do I talk to? Whereas when you start having those conversations or sending those messages early on in the program, again, you can really start to maximize what's available to you and making progress. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, what I will say is that this is recorded. And so the recording will be made available to everyone. I believe the slides, I don't know if the deck goes out. I don't know how this part works.
Yeah, we'll share everything out.
Okay, great. You get all the things.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that Twilight picture? I mean, I'll tell you what, use it for whatever you would like. But definitely if there's ever anything, okay, so we have something here. I've had trouble getting in touch with a technical coach since it has moved to Discord. There are certain hours, so depending upon your discipline, those hours are going to change. The hours did not change, but the platform went from being on Canvas to being on Discord. And I believe, I don't know what those hours specifically are for, I don't know what your discipline is. But if you click on, if you go in, if you're in Canvas, Michelle, check me on this, but if you're in Canvas and you are choosing the pair with the technical coach there, it's going to give you instructions on how to access that in Discord. The hours are going to be the same. The process is very similar, but the platform has changed. If you continue to have any challenges, I would encourage you to reach out directly to your student advisor. They can give you some more sort of specific information based on your discipline and what they know about that particular discipline with pair with the technical coach. So great question. Great question. Okay. If there's anything else as I'm wrapping up here, please feel free to jump in. That often is what people are like, oh, before we get done, I'm going to put in my question here. But if we don't have anything else, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. Oh yes, feedback survey. Thank you so much, Michelle. We do have a feedback survey that you all, it's here. I think it'll also be sent out as well. But if you want to take 1 second, click on this in the chat so it's open. So when we are done with our webinar today, you can just take this really quick survey. This helps us to keep honing the types of programs that we are offering, making sure that we are meeting the needs of our community, specifically of our students who are engaged in this. And so please, please, please take a couple of minutes and fill this out. This is going to be really helpful for us. So thank you, Michelle. I literally have a Post-it note right here to remind me, and the bright green, it wasn't enough for it to stick in my brain. So see, not every strategy works every time, everybody. So you got to switch it up and have people who have your back, like Michelle. And so again, thank you everyone for joining. I wish you the very best of luck wherever you are at on this journey. If you are getting ready to come in, if you are in and looking to re-engage, whatever that might be, we are here to help. Instructors are here, advisors are here. There's all kinds of resources. So please, please, please reach out to any of us, to those resources that were there earlier. We want to see you succeed, and we believe that you can. So thank you everybody for being here at Flatiron School and for joining us this evening. I hope you have a great night. And fill out your survey. It'll be great.
I love a little bit of feedback.
Yes, perfect. Okay. Great. I think we're done here. Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you soon. Bye.